Thank you for tuning into the Embodied Mother podcast. I am your host, Jacquelyn Page. Join me as I share my stories of my own experiences of moving through the threshold of motherhood and the wisdom that I have developed along the way. It is my hope that this is a space where mothers will walk away feeling empowered to embrace and nurture themselves and to feel grounded in their role as mother. Together, let's build the skills that will help you step into your sovereignty as mother and be the light and the pillar for your family. I can't wait to journey together. Well, hello and welcome to the Embodied Mother podcast. I'm your host, Jacquelyn Page, and today it is such an honor to have our guest, Daniel Grose, here. And truly, I believe that he is a pioneer in helping us connect back to the remembrance of how men and boys should be raised and really speaking his experiences and his wisdom of raising his sons in a way that connects to their authentic nature. So I'm so excited and honored to have you here. Welcome, Daniel.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I actually started following you maybe when you had, I don't know, maybe 10,000 followers, and I have just watched your growing vastly just grow what seems like overnight. I think you're almost to like close to 400,000 followers. And I think that just speaks to the hunger of parents out there yearning for this information, for this kind of knowledge that really isn't passed down to us anymore in the way that we used to live. And so I think that's why I'm just so excited to have come across your page. I've even done one of your webinars, The Rites of Passage, and it's just been really impactful for my life and the way I'm choosing to raise my son. But before we get into all of that, I would love to just hear a little bit about your backstory of what childhood was like for you, and then maybe that turning point where you decided that you wanted different for your family.
Yeah. Okay, that's a really long story. I will try to give you the Cliff Notes version, but it's going to take a minute. But it's good stuff. So go with me. It starts when I was 4, if I'm really going back. So that's how far back we're going.
Yeah.
So my mom was married to a man named Cecil. It's my biological father, and he wasn't ever really there. That's why I call him Cecil. I always called him Cecil, and Um, I think after the third time that my mom caught him being unfaithful, like red-handed, she was just like, I don't want this man raising my son anymore. So they got a divorce. And then about a year or so later, she remarried my stepdad. And my stepdad was like newly Christian. He was on fire for God at this point. And like he came into our life like a knight in shining armor. Like I took to him instantly, like with reckless abandon, because I was 5 at the time. I had never had a father, and so he wrestled with me. He just like took me places, like let me ride in the truck with him, and like I just thought he hung the moon. Like he was a fireman, this big strong guy, and he took us to church. Like I remember him reading his Bible, and so I loved him. So just I call him dad. So when I say dad, I'm referring to my stepdad. But everything was good for a long time from age 5 to 10. Every other weekend, I went to visit Cecil, who, without my mom paying the bills, he went to live with my grandmother, but they had like an 80-acre farm. So I got to ride horses, ride a three wheeler, which was like a thing back then. You rode a three wheeler and go fishing. They had a cow pond. Like it was awesome. And then I came home to my parents during the week. My mother never spoke an ill word about Cecil to me. So I just thought he was awesome. He had these huge muscles. If you know many drug addicts, you know that they can often be like the life of a party. Even a narcissist, it can be fun to be around at like a shallow level because they just seem like the center of attention. Like people orient around them. It's when you're a wife or a child of one that things really break down. But I loved Cecil. Like to him, he was still like I knew he was my biological father, but still my dad. And at age 10, that's when my life changed very drastically. So on spring break, when I was in 4th grade, I remember asking, like, why can't I go visit Cecil? Why can't I go to grandmother's house? They were not letting me see him. I hadn't seen him since Christmas. there was things going on that I didn't know. So he had done a very big deep dive in his drug addiction and was having some conflict with his girlfriend at the time. And I remember my dad calling me in to sit me on the couch. He just said, "Son, I've got something I have to tell you. I need you to sit down and get ready for it." And he was a fireman. He didn't pull any punches. He said, "Look, son, Cecil has shot his girlfriend,
Mm.
Jamie. He's on the run from the police. We need you to come inside. We don't know if he's going to come and try to get you or anything like that. So we need you to come in." And I remember this moment. It was just such a surreal moment because my body started having a panic attack, but my mind just wouldn't accept it. Like I knew this woman, I knew her kids, and I loved Cecil and looked up to him. And this just sounded like something out of a movie. It's like there's no way that he did this. Like that can't be true. So it just felt like I was sinking in my chair. So I stood up. I tried to walk to my bedroom so I could cry and have whatever emotions I'm going to have. I'm making about 5 steps and just collapse on the floor crying. And my dad, my stepdad held me, and I just cried out, "Why?" I don't even know who I was crying to. Like it was God, it was whoever, but what else is a 10-year-old supposed to say when they've just been confronted with this, like this level of information? So there was that moment in my life that changed a lot for me. I also did not know that my dad had been a drug addict previously. So, my stepdad, of course, before he married my mom and became a
Mhm.
Christian. So, like many firemen, he had a side gig. He got hurt at work and went to a doctor and got prescribed some prescription painkillers. And instantly that started his relapse into drug addiction. So, over the next year, he relapsed. My mom knew it before we did, but we eventually, as kids, started to see it. um, he was already kind of a hot-headed Italian, and he was bipolar. Anyway, so you add drug addiction into the mix, and I just say I lost one father in a moment, and the next father over a course of a year. But from age 10 to 11, I lost both my fathers. Um, we stayed in that home with my stepdad. It was very complicated. I mean, he and my mom had incomes intertwined.
Mm.
We had a mixed family where if they got separated, I would have lost stepbrothers and things like that. It was a hard situation for my mom to be in, but the whole rest of it was chaos. It was just series of drug addiction getting so bad, and then we'd have an event, like stuff would get broken, people would get cussed out, like um, and we would leave. We would leave for a while. There would be promises of rehab. There'd be change for a few months, and then it would all go back to normal. What was our normal, which was just living in fear. Like we were afraid
Yeah.
all the time. We came home, it was the 90s. We would just throw our backpacks down and stay outside. Like we didn't come in until we had to because we were afraid of my dad for the longest time. And it was just, it feels like every night. I know it wasn't every night, but at least a couple times a week, just that chaos, like up until midnight or 1 o'clock, hearing dad just break stuff and yell at my mom. And like, so I grew up in this, and that does a lot to a child, having to take that on. I remember hard conversations, like my mom asking me as a 13-year-old if I thought they should get a divorce. My
Wow.
dad coming in telling me he wanted to commit suicide, and he was like, "Son, I need you to pray for me." He's like, "I don't even want to get better. I need God to even give me the desire." And I'm like, a 14-year-old should not be carrying that level of spiritual weight.
Mm-mm.
Um, and so it continued like that for a very long time. I finally left the house when I was 21 and moved as far away as I could. I moved to Los Angeles, California. Which, by the way, important detail, I became a Christian, a real Christian at age 17.
Mm.
And a lot of that was understanding God as my father and the ability of God's love to fill the void in my heart from my own fathers. And I thought I had received like full on healing. I would not know until I was married with kids how much further I had to go. But I eventually left home. I went to Los Angeles. I was like free for the first time. All of that was gone. I could be anyone I wanted to be. And I met my wife there about 6 months in. Her name is Rachael. We met at a salsa dancing club called Steven's Steakhouse, which people who know me today think that's like the most shocking thing ever. I don't present as that kind of guy. I'm like, I know it was a different world. Okay, it was early 20s. Um, it was my I'm a Christian who loves to go to clubs phase. That was how it was. So we had a good time. We got married after about 3.5 years, and we moved back to Memphis just because LA was a very spiritually dry place for us, and there was no community. So we moved back home, and I did not understand the wounds that I still had. I wasn't facing any weight, so the cracks in my foundation, it didn't matter. There was not The foundation wasn't holding anything up, so it didn't matter that there was cracks. And we we were able to hide it and conceal it for the beginning because it's just the two of us. But I worked a lot, and so did Rachel. But we still had enough. Like, there's moments on the weekends, like we hang out and stuff that we couldn't see it. It was when we started having kids and I started feeling the weight of fatherhood, of providing and being a husband, all pulling at me and realizing there's not enough of me to go around. And the things I did to try to keep things afloat were severely rooted in my defense mechanisms from childhood and all my father wounds. It was, I have to be enough. I have to be a good husband. I have to keep this thing together. And my life was pretty much marked by desperation always. And it created a what was really a nightmare for Rachel and I. And I have one more story that kind of leads to the pinnacle. I know I've been talking for a while, but
I love it. You're a great storyteller.
so I'm gonna fast forward. I'm skipping a lot, but I'm gonna fast forward to about 5 to 6 years into our marriage when we had a 3 year old and a 6 month old. Now, our 3 year old was the easiest baby ever. He's that easy baby that makes you think, like, I'm an awesome parent. Like, parenting isn't hard. My second born son is still my most emotional child. He wanted to be held a lot. He cried a lot. He's the one that wanted to wake up like 7, 8 times a night and just like comfort nurse. It was really hard. And I was still working. I was building a landscape design firm. I was working 60 hours a week because I thought I've got to provide. I don't want to be like my dad, who was a drug addict and didn't work and put everything on my mom. I'm going to be different, which means I'm going to work and make money and provide physically to the exclusion of mental, emotional, and spiritual protection provision of my home. But that's like what I knew. And many men are like that. Like, that's the thing that we first go to prove our worth.
Hmm.
So I did that. And my wife would have those conversations with me before we had kids of, I don't feel pursued, something has changed. And like I said, we kind of hit it. And after our firstborn son was there, they got worse. And I got more defensive of, how come nothing is ever good enough for you? Like, I
Hmm.
just had dinner with you. Like, why do you need us to have this conversation? I need to go outside and work. You're not supporting me. You're an unsupportive wife. Like, it's a really hard statements. Like, you know what? You should have married someone else. You should have married someone with no money or more emotional capacity because obviously I'll never make you happy. Like, these passive aggressive manipulative statements. Now, I wasn't maliciously manipulative. I was hurt and broken
Yeah.
and acting out of wounds. But with our two sons, I came home one night and she's crying at the sink doing dishes. This was a different moment because we weren't in an argument and I wasn't really supposed to see it. I came home and walked into a private moment with my wife. And I asked her what was wrong, and she didn't want to tell me. And I said, "Why don't you want to tell me?" She said, "Because I know that if I tell you, you're going to make it about you. You're going to feel like I'm attacking you, like I'm telling you you're a bad husband. And I'm going to spend the next hour or two trying to take care of your feelings about this, about the way I feel." She's like, "I just can't do that right now. I have to have my own feelings and my own release. I can't take care of your feelings right now." And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, what has happened that my wife is alone at home crying while she's doing dishes with these kids around and she can't even talk to me about it? And it hit me. It's like, I'm not like my dad, but somehow I have created the same life. I just took a completely different path.
Hmm.
But like my mom, who used to spend nights crying about her marriage, my wife is doing the same thing. And it was because I'm like, why? I'm a good man. I love my wife. Like I'm working hard. I don't do drugs. I don't do any of this stuff. Like I didn't kill anybody. Why is my life still falling apart? As I promised my wife that I would listen, and she told me what she had told me many times before. Like I feel like the full weight of motherhood falls on me. The entire weight of responsibility of this home is mine. She's like, I know you're working. I know you're doing what you need to do, and I appreciate that. But none of that changes the reality that I am alone here. And that's just not how I thought marriage was going to be. I thought it would be us together. And I feel like an obligation. I feel like everybody else gets you except me. I get the scraps. And I just listened. Everything in me when she said it wanted to do the old stuff. Like, Rachael, that's not fair. Or, Rachael, give me more time. Eventually, my business will be big enough. I'll be home more. I'll have middle managers. Or, you know, don't you see all I'm doing for you? I do love you. Why don't you feel loved by what I do all day? How can you say you're alone? I wanted to say all that. And I bit my tongue and went outside after she was done. And I yelled at God and just like, what the heck? You said abundant life, more than conquerors, peace that passes all understanding. I'm like, my life doesn't have any of that. Why? And after I yelled at God for about 20 minutes, I broke down and cried and just said, please, like, you have to help me. I'm doing everything I can. I'm losing her. I'm losing my marriage. God, please do something. And that was sort of the pinnacle moment of God saying, you have to surrender in a new way. And I started a bunch of work after that. I was willing, literally, in that moment, to do whatever it took to change things in my life. So that's the story of my childhood up into marriage and sort of the culmination of all this stuff into, I don't want to say one moment, but a big moment of things have to radically change.
Hmm.
So there you
Yeah.
go.
Thank you. I love your storytelling. Truly. I think it's a gift of yours. Just to even summarize all of that into the way that you shared. There were so many different points that I want to speak to, but really it sounded like there was two pinnacle moments of coming to this realization is when you gave your life to God, like you said, when you were 17. And just even that acknowledgement of, I'm going to allow you to fill this void of father that I feel like I haven't gotten in my life. And I think that in that surrender, that is already a leap of faith that I'm seeing in your path of, coming into who God created you to be. But also in that moment with your wife, I don't think there was an accident that you walked into that moment. I think that that was happened on purpose, because it was such a catalytic moment for you to say and to even just have the experience of mirroring your childhood and mirroring your current reality of when that happened and to pause and choose something different. It takes so much energy to choose something different, to break that pattern that has always been that we're used to that feels comfortable. And I think that is something that you continue to do is to break the patterns and choose something different. And a lot of us, or what I have witnessed, is some people will become aware, but then don't choose change, and they continue to live in that cycle. And it really is this like step of faith and this courage that it takes within to um, to propel out of that, to propel out of the cycle that continues to bring us there. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think that there was so much to be heard there, and I'm so grateful for your honesty in that share and also the honesty within yourself to take responsibility. Because, like you said, I'm working, I'm doing the things that I think I'm meant to do and provide for a family. And that is one of the takeaways that I've watched in your journey of what you share on social media is taking that job of when you working 60, 70 hours a week and start to get evaluate that and really evaluate the presence that you bring more at home with your sons. I would love to hear your journey of actually what that looked like, of having this business that you're building and realizing that you being away so much is actually not benefiting your family in the way that you want to cultivate your family and redefining what that looks like, how much money to bring in versus how much time at home. I would love to hear a little bit about that.
Okay, well, I'm going to get really practical for you, but I think that being practical is super important in situations like this. So let me paint a fuller picture of this to you. So I started building this business based on sort of naivety of youth and a lot of arrogance and hubris, thinking one day I'm going to build it. I'm going to have 50 employees. I'm going to sell this for like 3 million bucks. And that's how I'm going to provide for us with no idea how to actually do that. I just started it out, right? Social media is really bad about showing you young rich people, and you're like, I could be like that guy. Um, so I was using debt at the time. I was leveraging debt, and sometimes that debt was from the government. I was not paying taxes on time, and because that was a source of failure for me, and I was feeling so much failure at home with my wife, I would not let Rachael into the finances of it. Anytime she would offer, like, let me do QuickBooks for you, let me help. Are you setting aside taxes? Like, what are the debt payments doing? And I was like, no, this is my world. This is my thing. Like, I got it. And the amount of anxiety that created in her was huge. She's like, I don't know what's going on with money. I don't know what's going on with anything. She had all this stuff um, pressing down on her, right? And it was driving this wedge between us. But when I came to that moment, the big thing is like, I'm willing to let it all go. And literally, it's like, God, if I have to start like being a stock boy at Costco again, I did that earlier in my life. Like, I'll do that at $10 an hour. Like, we'll sell stuff, we'll move into we'll do whatever we have to do. But everything that I've been trying to build by my own effort, like, I'm willing to let that go, even if it means humiliation, loss of respect. I don't care anymore. So like the level of brokenness, I can't overstate that. But like what you just did, you're like brokenness, like it doesn't lead to the actions required for change. So I like to say like love and effort were not enough. I had love and effort. Um, what I didn't have was wisdom and understanding and a lot of skills that I needed to have. So practically, this is what that looked like. The next day, well, maybe right after that, anyway, Rachel and I had a new conversation that was what kind of life do we want to build? What do we want our home to feel like? What do we want out of life and marriage? We didn't have that conversation before. We didn't know to have it. It was like, we got married, we're in love. I'm going to take off and start working, and you can work. And then when you have kids, if you want to come home, you come home. And we had ideals that we knew we wanted to have. We had values. We had zero understanding of the process of what it was going to take to live those values out. Right. So I say this all the time, we had a shared vision, but not a shared process. Rachel would have never agreed to, oh, for the next 5, 6 years, you're just going to be gone 60 hours a week. And then when you come home, you're going to be really, really tired. And I'm going to raise kids by myself. And maybe this will pay off financially one day. Maybe not. Who knows? She would have never submitted to that. I wouldn't have either. But once we got into it, I had debt. I had people on payroll. I had contracts. We couldn't just get out of it. So we sat down and said, if we're redoing it, here's how extreme it was. I need to make X amount of money, which two kids in 2015 in Memphis, Tennessee, it was 60 grand that I needed to take home. It's like, okay, so the new thing is I'm not working more than 40 hours a week unless I absolutely have to. So we are going to change my business so that I can make 60 grand with 40 hours. And every other part of the business, we're going to sell off. So I sold a huge part of it. I paid off some debts. I gave some guys some severance and went back down to my core people and said, we're doing it different. So it was crafting a life. And it was scary for me. So I was like, God, is this even going to work? Like, can I charge people enough money to make the money I need within 40 hours? I didn't know how to do any of that. But that's what we're going to do. And from now on, I don't work more than 40 hours a week unless Rachel and I decide we want extra money for a new van or whatever it is we want. And then we'll say, okay, I'm going to work 60 hours for 6 weeks to take some extra jobs. That's how we're going to do that. And everything else is going to be changed. It was Now my work has to really serve my family instead of me asking my family to come second to my work.
Mhm. Mm.
Um, Ultimately, my work was always for my family, but it was an undefined future one day, like maybe it'll pay off. And I don't think it ever would have. So that was the super practical thing we did first. We sold off part of my business, we paid off debts, we changed my work life balance, and we started living on bare minimum and budgeting. So that's just super practical skills. Another thing I did was I called four buddies of mine and said, "Hey, my marriage is about to break." I literally punched a hole in a wall the other night. I never thought I'd be a hole puncher kind of guy. I was so mad at my wife. Like, we look good. Like Daniel and Rachael, they go to church. Daniel works. He's reliable. They have two wonderful kids and backyard chickens. Like, they're great. I'm like, we're not great. And invited some men over to my house every Tuesday to just talk. Turns out their marriages were not that much different. We all looked good and we were all like, this is super hard. And we're triggered all the time. Our wives are having a hard time with it. Like, we're all drowning. And that was really great to just have men. I started reading books. I didn't have money for a lot of like therapy and counseling at the time. So I just started reading books and pursuing things. I started realizing, like, oh, wow, I have these things called father wounds that I'd heard about, but I thought I was beyond them. And I realized the reason I cannot handle my wife asking for help is because my identity is rooted in my
Mm.
strength as a husband and as a man. And anytime that's threatened, I can't handle that because I'm so afraid of being like my dad.
Mm.
It means my idol is being different than my father, which sounds like a good thing. But running away from a fear and running towards who God has called you to be are very different
Mm.
motivations.
Mm.
So when you're running away from a fear and someone says you're becoming that fear, you get defensive. You get in denial. You're like, no, I'm not. You're the problem. I'm good. And you just don't appreciate it. You need to change. If you would change, it would show that I actually am a good man because I can't handle being like my dad. I can't handle that being my reality. Um, it's shifting. And so that's why I got defensive in every argument we ever got in and couldn't handle it, and saying, I have to shift my identity onto Christ and realize, like, I am loved by him fully and
Mm.
completely. I'm free from the pressure of having to be enough. And that started to change a lot for me. But Jacquelyn, I have to tell you, like, none of that happened in a moment. It was an
Yeah.
ugly, hard process. At work, I had contracts that I had to live out. I had to try to sell a business. I still had to work 60 hours for a long time. And understanding identity in Christ is, most of the guys that come to me for coaching, they already know, they've been around church enough to know that their identity should be based in God's love. But for that to be so ingrained in their heart that it changes the way they respond to their wife and kids on like Sunday morning is there's a huge disconnect.
Hmm.
Um, and you already hit it. That disconnect is the moment of brokenness and then having faith and then changing your actions. That is what builds the real knowledge in your heart that I can stand on this identity in Christ and not on everything else I've always stood on,
Yes.
everything that has always kept me safe.
Yes.
All right. So, gosh, there's too many tangents. Everything, everything I was doing in my marriage were all the things that helped me survive the trauma of my childhood. I'm
Yeah.
going to work hard. I'm going to handle things. I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to martyr myself and all my emotions. I'm going to just sacrifice for the good of everybody else. Sounded really great, but it was causing my marriage to fail. So after that moment, we started a journey, and that's like 11 years ago now.
Hmm.
And it has just been a constant journey from then until today of orienting my life and crafting a life with my wife together on the same team about what do we want our marriage to feel like, our home to feel like. What does that mean for my job? What does that mean for my kids' schooling? What does that mean for her as a mother? And the concept of providing financially, this is a, people are going to disagree with this. I think that's my fourth responsibility.
Mm.
I'm like, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally are tied maybe for second. And then after that, it's providing financially. I know at a certain point, if you're starving to death and homeless, financial gets like put way up. I get that. But beyond a certain income threshold, finances must be set aside if spiritual and emotional provision and love in your home can be increased.
Hmm.
And
Absolutely.
that's a huge step of faith. So
And not just even a step of faith, but also drastically changing. And I know that it took a process of, making that choice and the deconstruction of your current reality to bring in the reality that you're deciding on together. I I I have recognized the lack of support that people get when they get married. There's not that village wisdom passed down to us, like you said, how I didn't know these things. And it doesn't just happen by chance, to be quite honest. I think that there's a choice, and then like we have this trust in God to lead us there. And I think that marriage and raising children will be the biggest mirror for us to see the things within ourselves that need to be healed and illuminated. And it can feel very activating within us when we're shown these parts of ourselves that we thought may have been healed, or we thought that we're not there anymore. And I think that it almost feels like choosing to live in the mundane and almost like without a lack of clarity. And it feels a little lofty versus you began to create values that anchor your foundation as a home. And that is what drove the choices and the actions around it. But once you came together to talk about how do we want to feel as a family and how do we want to raise our children and what does that look like for every person in the family, it's such a redefining way to have as a family and come together in that way, and it becomes more intentional. And so all of your choices are beginning to become more intentional. And speaking just to my marriage, it I have recognized that we were in that almost not a rat race, but just going. And we thought that we were doing the things that we were meant to be doing, and was like, wait, this actually doesn't feel good. This isn't how I want to show up in marriage. And allowing the deconstruction of that and trusting the deconstruction of that to go where you like have a vision. And even just speaking that vision out loud can be so powerful. As a family, we were like, let's just dream big. What do we see for ourselves? What does that look like? How do you want to feel? Where are we going to be? Where would we live? What would our life look like? And I asked my son and daughter, what would homeschooling look like for you? And then it was just this beautiful like essence that we were tapping into. And then immediately after that, it was like God is showing the light, shining the light on all the places that we need to heal and up level to come to that reality that we just spoke of. And so it's a process of radical responsibility in ourselves to show up to be that we're choosing different and choosing to be.
yeah, and that was a huge difference because before it was I just want to make them responsible for it. And that's what my wife felt all the time. I feel like the person who reveals our wounds, instead of understanding like they're revealing the things in me that must change in order for me to grow. It's like if they would stop pressing at the wound, it's like the wound wouldn't be there. I would be fine.
Mm.
Like if my wife would just accept like, oh, he's working, he's great, he's doing his part, and I'll just be fine here with the marriage that we had. Um, I'm like, then I could have told myself that I was healed and that I was fine. And I can't tell you, I'm so glad that my wife loved me enough to continue. It's even hard for me to talk about because for years she had to re enter the hurtful, hard conversation, risking my defensiveness and be vulnerable. I'm like, I'm going to bring it up again to him. Like, I don't feel pursued. Hey, I'm trying to give date nights to us. Not only do you act like it's a burden to go on them, but you never ask me to go on a date night. Don't you ever want to? And then me getting upset about that. I'm like, Here's this beautiful woman I chose to spend my life with, wanting to be with me, and I'm telling her how wrong she is for it. And she risked that conversation so many times, but she never stopped, and she never got bitter. She never, I mean, there were moments of hardship, definitely out of her hurt, but she never gave up. And she stayed with me until one day I finally, let's say I finally, God finally reached down and said, like, you're going to change. You are not stewarding my daughter's heart
Mm.
well. You are causing her the very pain that you saw your mom go through. Dude, it's you. You have to change. Um, and that was everything.
I love the way that this conversation has evolved from raising sons to navigating marriage because honestly, it starts there.
Yep.
And the shifts and the changes in our family unit, our children will mirror the disconnect between a marriage, and they will let us know when that safety is not felt. Because coming from like the woman and the wife, it is deeply important for me to feel safe in my body and in my marriage and to feel that rapport between my husband and I. Because when I feel that sense of safety and that rapport between us, there's like this exhale in my nervous system and I have energy to do the things that I want to do to show up in marriage the way I want to parent the way I want to cultivate our life and be the heart of our home in a way that feels in integrity with our family values. But it really is it really does start there in the family unit, the marriage. And I think that for me as coming into motherhood, I wanted to be this mother that was compassionate and understanding and patient, and I wanted to do all these things. And I recognized that really the root of where my healing needed to go was in my marriage first. And once I began to pour into my marriage in the way I pour into motherhood, there was a drastic shift and change that I was choosing my husband in a way that is a choice, right? This baby needs me, and it requires me to survive. And if I could pour into my marriage in a way that is intentional and is a choice, then the dynamics of the whole family began to shift, and the way that we were raising our children began to shift because of the intentionality within our marriage and in our home. And so I love hearing your journey of all of this because I'm seeing the elements of really it started with you and Rachel and getting clear on y'all's foundation together to emanate into y'all's home. And so thank you for speaking upon that because I feel like that is as mothers we can just like pour so much into motherhood that the marriage can have like a back burner, but I hear y'all bringing it back as the foundation, the pillar really for y'all's home.
Yeah, I always tell guys, like, there's a hierarchy of relationships in your life. The first is your relationship with God, which is tied to your relationship with you. So I
Hmm.
say you can't pour from an empty cup. So actually put your relationship with you second, but it's tied to that first one. They can't be separated out. And the second one is your marriage, and then it's your children, and then it's like community and friends. So you have to prioritize your marriage, and I always say that doesn't mean quantity of minutes. Your kids and your work are probably going to get more minutes than your marriage in a season of life because of the neediness and demand of those things. But the time that you do spend in your marriage has to be the most protected. So it's like if me and my wife get 45 minutes to talk a day, it's going, and it's like usually at the end of the night, like 9:30 to like 10:30 or something. Like that's protected. Work doesn't get that time. I don't stay up extra late with my kids to watch a movie. If my marriage's time is the most sacred and protected above the other things, even though they get more quantity of time from me. So I think that's really important. But Jacquelyn, this it's so connected. I don't want my sons to have these same wounds and struggles that I had to learn at age 32 and 36, where I felt lost and like I was groping through the dark. And it was my wife's tears and her pain that eventually turned me. It wasn't my father's guidance from a young age that showed me who I should be going into it.
Hmm.
And I can't change my past, and give my wife a different beginning of our marriage. Um, I can redeem the one that I'm in, and then I can set my kids up to do something different. But even my wife's motherhood, when she and I are in disconnect, her relationship with my kids suffers from that. I see that in so many different marriages. I always say, like, I want to protect my wife's relationships with my sons.
Mm.
She is such an important person in their life. And if the most important relationship in her life, other than God, is in constant turmoil, how is she supposed to be the mother that, like you just said, that she wants to be, like creative, lighthearted, like full of nurture? Like, no, she becomes much more hardened. Like, I have to get it done, less emotions. And like, I see so many men want to point to the problem in their wife. She's too harsh on the kids. She's this, she's that. I'm like, the way she is with the kids is probably a response to your marriage and the relationship she has with you. Um, it's a hard thing for people to hear, but it's just true.
Yeah, it is. And I love how you touched upon protecting her relationship with children. And I actually want to tie this into raising sons because I know that we haven't touched upon the like stages of boyhood, but I am learning more about this like quote unquote leaving Eden time where sons around like 7, 8, they go through this shift of disconnecting with the mother and going more with the father. And I wasn't quite fully prepared for that as much as I would like to say I was. And I think homeschooling also ties in another element because I am here by myself, homeschooling and just navigating that shift from really attaching to me to attaching to dad and harnessing that time for them to have together when he is here. And he has a pretty good work life balance that we have become so appreciative of now that when he leaves work, it's he's done with work and has this evening time and weekends with us. And I would love to hear if you have noticed that in your sons of like really there's like this, and even maybe this is an opportunity where you can talk about a little bit about the stages because I know I just like skipped many to go straight to 7 and 8, but I'm recognizing that in our dynamic right now, my son just turned 8 and it feels like this he's growing into himself and he's having his own opinions and he's beginning to see the world in a different light, it seems. And I've really noticed so much more connection and deeper dynamic with his dad right now.
Yeah. So that's huge. I will just tell you, my oldest son turns 14 in a few months. And this last year has been even a more pronounced shift. So you're going to get a more pronounced shift coming up. And it has also been difficult for my wife because she loves him. I think sort of the releasing and letting go, like that is a thing to be grieved. Um, I like Robert Bly says it this way. He's like, no mother worth her salt just relinquishes her son over to dad. Like there's always a holding on. And that's an important process for a son because a son has to make a choice to say, like, I'm leaving the world where somebody always cares for me. And I want to step into a world more of that of my father's where I care for people and I become strong enough to give back, not just always receive. Um, so it's been huge for us. I think the reason my wife has been able to do it is because she sees how positively my son responds to me.
Mm.
Um, it's just very very different. So why don't we just get into the phases? Because I'm like I don't know how to talk about that one without kind of like leading up
Do
to
it.
it.
Yeah.
All right. So the four phases of a boy. Um, it's something that like I ended up coming up with as I watched my kids go through it. There's different iterations of it um, that folks have written about. So this is like my made up version of it. But it starts with age 0 to 3. So that's the baby phase, which by the way, my 2.5 year old is already out of that. So maybe it starts younger. But for that, it's really I'll go just a little bit on that one. But that's really just a phase of like nurture and comfort. So I'm going to tell you, I talk about different roles between mothers and fathers, and they do have a different role,
Yes.
but I never mean segregated roles where like the mother is the nurturer and the father is the separator. I nurture my kids so much. Like I am sweet, I am kind. I think my 2 year old needs to experience what masculine nurture looks like.
Mhm.
He knows. He knows my shoulder is much harder than Rachel's. My voice is deeper. I've got whiskers, but he still likes being with me. Like I comfort him at night. So dads are a good nurturer, or do have the capability to be very soft and very sweet. And it's just science. Like we now know that if a man has a 6 month old in the house, his testosterone levels go down. I'm like, that's not by accident. It's because that's what's needed for the development of your child at that age. All of us, mother, baby, father, we're all adapting to that relationship hormonally and neurologically. We do that. So I really always tell fathers, but you need to build in a new way, in a different way, a bubble for your wife to be with that baby. And that means you take on for this season of 6 months to 2 years more of the responsibilities of the home. So, more of the homeschooling, more of the dishwashing, owning all of it so that your wife doesn't even have to think, does that need to be done? Is he handling it? Is he putting the shoes on that they need for today's weather? Because I always do that. And whenever he does it, he gives them a t shirt in the snow, right? I see this stuff all the time because she's the one who's always done it. So she's really good at it. Now he's trying to figure it out. And I'm like, we got to figure it out and step in so that she can really nurture in the most loving way. I heard it said once that a mom in survival mode cannot nurture life. And I love that. I know many moms in survival mode who do nurture life. And every one of them would say, yeah, I wish that I was not in survival mode.
Mhm.
Um, I say the job of a leader is to create the conditions in which others can thrive. That's actually Seth Godin said that. That's his quote, not mine. But I'm like, that's the conditions I want to create for my wife and my young child in that phase. So, really cool phase, but they need to get that safe and secure level of attachment to go into the next phases. The last thing I'll say about this, look, we co-sleep with our kids. We hold them when they cry. Like they get to nurse as long as they want to. And different people do different things. But for forever, people are like, you're going to create a codependency. I'm like, I have 4 boys and not a one of them is codependent. They are all very independent. And it's my belief that if you give them that security by lavishing them with all the attachment you possibly can, that attachment doesn't create codependency. It creates the foundation for independence later. It's
Mhm.
like, I know dad's got me, so I can go off on the playground and play and do dangerous things instead of being scared and cuddling around mom and dad because I'm actually not sure if I'm safe or not. And mom and dad don't always make me feel that. So I've got to be close to the nearest like point of safety I can be. So dreamer phase, that's really important because part of establishing identity in the very beginning in your child is they need to know that they're safe and that's it. Right. Then you get the dreamer phase. So I speak boy language because I have sons. Girls go through a similar mirroring phase. I just don't have the language for it. Someone else can write that book. But the dreamer phase is ages around 3 to somewhere around 8, right? It's different for every child, but it's basically where they get their identity just based on belonging with you, right? It's like, I'm part, dad wants to spend time with me. I'm part of dad's world. You know, a 6 year old boy wants to marry his mom and be his dad, right? He'll tell you, like, I'm going to marry mom. Dad, you get out of here, right? Because they just want to know they belong with you. Like that's all that their world is about. They don't really have identity yet as separate people with their own thoughts. If you believe in Jesus, they're going to believe in Jesus. If you believe in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, they believe in it. They believe what you believe, and what you believe about them, they believe about themselves,
Yes.
right? And they figure out what you believe about them by the way you talk to them,
Yes.
by whether or not when they come and say, Dad, look at the picture I drew today in homeschool. And dad's looking at his phone. He's like, in a minute, son, like I'm busy right now. I can't look at your stuff, right? I've done that. And somewhere that's telling him this is more important than that,
Mm.
right? And I'm of the frame of mind if I want to take every single opportunity to affirm them, that I possibly can, because I get 18 to 20 years to build these young men up. So if they will give me 5 opportunities a night to affirm them, I'm not going to give 3 of them to my cell phone or
Oh,
whatever else. Like, just not doing it. So dreamer phase is huge. Like, I just hang out with them as much as I can. Um, so the point of things is different. Like, the point isn't to get stuff done or be productive. It's like they're just hanging out with me. So if this job, like cooking breakfast, gets a little burned and takes 3 times as long and has more cleanup, I'm like, the point isn't to make breakfast. The point is that my son gets to do stuff with me.
mm-hmm.
Um, Establishing that at the dreamer phase, in the dreamer phase, is really important. They need to know they belong. If you skip it and don't establish it, they long for it forever. Do I actually belong? And it messes everything up down the road. I always tell dads, the relationship equity that you need to speak a hard truth to your 15-year-old was built when he was 5. So don't wait until he's old enough to actually like build a fence with you or have a conversation about the game or care about that. I'm like, no, it's because you built Legos with him when it was super boring when he was 5, right? That he felt like I belong with my dad. And so, all right, so that all sort of sets the stage for the phase that you just talked about, which I call the challenger phase. And it's where they first start to say, like, I'm going to just develop an identity that is different from my parents. I'm my own person. And they start challenging you all over the place. Like, I always say, like, they're going to be like, do I believe in God? I don't know if I believe in Jesus like my parents do. I don't even know, like, is bedtime, should that be a thing? Are my parents just jerks? Like, bedtime is stupid. Why do we have bedtime? And they'll challenge a lot of stuff. Like, I don't want to clean. I want to go outside and play. And their level of potential defiance and disrespect and challenging starts to go up a little bit, because they've started to see you're not always right. You tell them, don't yell, don't hit your sister when you're supposed to share stuff, but you actually came up and yelled at them for yelling at each other. And they start to realize mom and dad aren't perfect. They're actually flawed. There might be someone stronger than my dad who could actually beat him up, which my 5-year-old would never have thought that. But my 8-year-old's like, I don't know, so and so's dad's bigger than my dad. It's a new phase where they challenge you. And I always tell parents, they are trying to establish identity as separate from you, but not separate from your love.
Mm, mm,
And that's where you really have to dig into yourself and say, I need to be able to be the wall and the boundary, like sort of a soft one, more like a rubber band they bounce against their challenging. So they have permission to challenge, but not permissiveness to be defiant and disrespectful. So it's like, I can handle you telling me, well, dad, I think you're wrong. Right. And to say, like, well, I'm not wrong. And you're not going to just talk to me that way. But I do want to allow you to explore why you think I'm wrong and talk to you about it. Right. And that's probably more nitty gritty. Like, how do I do that each time? I'm like, sometimes I have a conversation that takes 30 minutes. And sometimes I say, you're going to do what I said because I told you to do it. And we can have a conversation after obedience. You're not going to make an explanation a prerequisite for obedience. So
mm.
it looks different each time. But in that phase, for a son, especially, he's going to start trying to figure out, like, am I a man? Like, he knows he's supposed to be like dad and wants to be like dad a little bit. So that's probably a little bit of what you're getting with the challenges. So what does mom know about this?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's where it's really important for, gosh, it's hard to even say, his respect for you becomes a little bit more grounded, a lot more grounded in your husband's respect for you.
Mm,
Um, I teach my sons to have respect. I mean, my wife will garner respect, and so will you in your own right.
hmm.
But the level of respect that I really want them to have, a lot of that is from my influence of, if I don't raise my voice to your mom, you as a 9-year-old sure do not raise your voice to your mom. Me and your
Mhm.
mom are equals, and I'm respectful.
Yes.
You are not an equal. You are a child. She is an authority. So you're not going to be disrespectful to your mom. Okay.
Yep.
Like, hands down, even if you think she is unfair and flat out wrong. Like, she told you your turn with the basketball was up, and you're like, my brother had it for more minutes than me yesterday. She's being unfair and unjust. Mom is ridiculous. I'm like, we're we're not going to go that route of disrespect. We could talk about it. So that's sort of the stuff you start to get in this challenger phase from like age 9 to 8 or 9 to 12.
Yes.
All right, I don't want to keep going. I know I talked a lot about the first three phases. I wanted to give you a chance in case you had a.
Actually, I want to like speak it to that because since we're in that phase right now, that is definitely what I'm experiencing is especially that we homeschool, like really beginning to challenge what I'm saying and recognizing that I don't have all the answers and that he might have information that I had not heard of and he's teaching me. But I also want to go back to the marriage aspect of this because you said that the dad's respect for me, and I've noticed my husband coming in to defend more when these conversations are happening. And I want to also speak to that also took a level of rewiring to receive my husband's protection and provision in that way. Because, like how you mentioned, mom and dads parent very differently. And at the beginning, I didn't trust that fully. And I would begin to get in the way of the way my husband would choose to parent. And like you said, I'm the more nurturing and he's more structured and he is in the logical sense of how he parents. And I have to say that in letting go and trusting him and his divine self to show up as father has allowed for me to receive that protection and that provision. Whereas in a previously I may not have cultivated the space to receive that and him trust that I'm going to receive that. And so I think that is very big element of that of how we parent so differently and allowing that difference in parenting so that I can receive his protection now that we're in this space and he is providing that equal respect between the two of us. And so I just really wanted to speak to that because I may not have always been in that space to receive what my husband is giving me in that moment.
Yeah, so that is a really difficult dynamic. So we've had to talk about that too, especially in moments where like because we do that for each other too. Because sometimes I'm the one that gets hot, and Rachel's the one that has to be like, "Hey, actually, a little more motherly nurture would be if you could get a little bit of that in your tone of voice right now." Because to be honest, they're like I have some triggers with my kids, but them being disrespectful to her is one of my huge like hot button things. So, and I can get too harsh on that. So one thing that very rarely happens. So we talked earlier about having like a shared values as a home, as a husband and wife,
Mhm.
and then it's really important. Like, what's the process? What's that look like day to day? How much
Yes.
money do we need? Who does dishes? Who does this? Like, what's the process for living those values out in real life that we agree upon and all that? Same thing with parenting. You have to have like a shared parenting philosophy. So I always start that with this question that I got from author John Tyson. It's like, who do you want your son to be on the day he leaves home? Like you're describing this young man, the character traits,
Mm.
like generous, kind-hearted, has a work ethic, loves Christ, knows his identity, doesn't have insecurities, doesn't equate his self-worth with performance, like all this stuff. And then we dial it back to okay, so they're 7 and they're doing this behavior. What are the disciplines that she and I um, agree upon? I say discipline because discipline is discipleship. It is not the same as punishment, which is very different because punishment is too akin to like vengeance and control and
Yes.
not forming character. I think the same action can be given to your child, one as a punishment from that perspective, or as guidance and a boundary. It's just a healthy consequence. And one of them form a child's character, and the other one create bitterness and resentment. But the same action given,
Yes.
um, like you're grounded for 2 days, whatever that looks like. that could bring connection or it can break, even though it's the same thing, depending on the parent's heart in the moment. So Rachel and I talk about what do our children need individually because they're very different, and what do they need from us, and how are we both equipped to meet the need of that child's heart in this age and in these types of situations. So there's a ton of parenting conversations. Like sometimes we have a parenting debrief like 3 or 4 times a week. He did this today. I did that. We did. It's a lot because that's the work of our life right now. We have 4 boys. Like our main work of our life, time wise, is parenting them because we homeschool too. So
Yes.
discipleship and raising our kids is a 24/7 thing. We never like send them off, by design. So when we see these things coming out in our son, we talk about, so we get on the same page ahead of time, um, about what they need and who they need it from. And another is just us talking about what are we going to do in that moment where somebody needs to step in and relieve the other so that we don't feel like our toes are being stepped on,
Yes.
um, by the other parent.
Yes.
And I don't think that there's a super clear way to do it. I think agreeing upon it beforehand and having humility in the moments is what is necessary, and just know it's not always going to go perfectly well. And then we have a lot of post ops, like after it, like, hey, he was disrespectful for you to you. You got angry and started getting on to him about it. And then I saw it was escalating. So I came in to de escalate it. And then you turned towards me and got upset with me because you didn't like how I was handling it. Um, let's talk about why that happened and how what to do different next time.
Yes.
Because when we agree on it beforehand, at least then we know we're out of alignment with the thing that we said we wanted. And that helps us respond differently.
Yes.
Then I'm not even sure if I ever agree with the way you do it. You're being too soft. They always need more hardship versus no, they always need more nurture. And then a parent will, you will try to balance out the other parents. Like they're too soft. I'm going to be hard to make up for it. And then instead of getting two healthy parents, you get two toxic parents.
Mm.
One who's
Mhm.
always enabling, one who's always dictating and being a tyrant. And the parents push each other to the extremes instead of, they try to balance out their parenting in the way they parent the kids instead of trying to influence each other and bringing each other closer towards a healthy center.
Yes.
And then that influences the children,
Yes.
right? So I'm like, the
Yes.
work you guys should do together, you're trying to skip doing it together and
Yes.
just trying to like affect the kids.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that just goes full circle to how we said raising our children actually starts with the foundation of our marriage, of collaborating together on what that looks like, what the process looks like. It may not, and like you said, may not be perfect, but when we can feel that we're on the same team and the essence of that trust is there, then when we have those conversations, when we come upon these little sticky moments, then that foundation is already there. And I'm hearing the layer really is the marriage and our foundation between one another is the most important thing that's going to have the impact on how we choose to raise our children.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. I need to say one more really important thing to you that's probably controversial, at least for sons. And that's that your son at 8 or 9 is now not, he doesn't want to be you. He
Hmm.
might want to be a person like you. He admires things about you and wants to be loved by you. All that is great, but he doesn't want to grow up to be a mom or a wife. So
Yes.
there's things that he realizes about himself now, but he does want to grow up to be a good man, whatever his idea of that is.
Yes.
So when a father comes in and says, this is how a good man treats women, this is
Mm.
how a good man honors other people, and scripture says to honor your mother, he is by example tying in the respect and behavior to the son's identity. Um, when you do it, he should listen. Obviously, he should listen to you, but it's still like I'm telling you to do something, but I'm not the person you want to be anymore.
Yes.
So this is really important. I'm the person though where you start practicing and working out what it looks like to be the person that you want to be. Right. And so I always say, why moms are so crucial? They are the first training ground for a son to work out what it means to be a virtuous man.
Hmm.
I'm like, if you don't love and serve and are respectful to your mother, you're not going to be that way to your wife. And that's going to affect your sons and your daughters down the road. So the power that a father has in a boy's heart is that a father is always inviting a son into the identity because he is who the son is eventually wanting to become in a way that a mother isn't um, quite that way. So does that make
Yeah,
sense?
absolutely. Absolutely. Even even just the essence of I have noticed like we'll have to have little debrief moments of conversations after, because obviously in the heat of the moment when he's like being defiant or just, having a moment, I know that that is not the time to like come in to explain myself. And like for me and our dynamic, I have to allow that to diffuse and then we'll come back together and debrief of like, I'm not just like harping on you. I'm doing this because, cleaning up after yourselves or, being a team player. If I cooked, it's your job to come and help clean up and we're going to do it together. And it's really about this like this unity and him seeing that he is a part of this family and to do your part requires some energy for yourself to you enjoy that meal. So now let's go clean up together. And it has become more of like a dance of us doing it together and bringing him in along that and then explaining in the moments when he's not triggered or activated of why that's important for him to start taking on more responsibility as he gets older. But even just can I share a quick story? I know we're coming into our hour mark, but he specifically asked me to share this because I think this just speaks to how I respond so differently. We have had a rat that has lived in our yard. It had babies. We got rid of the babies. It's still here and it's eating our garden. And every year there's like nibbles off of our vegetables. And I'm like, I'm done with this rat. Well, one day he decides he's going to take it upon himself to like track down this rat. And he just starts tracking it and looking at its moves and like places this like sticky trap. And so he like caught it and brings it to me one morning. He's like, I got the rat. And I was like, oh my goodness. Okay. Myself is like, we can go humane release it. We'll go put it in the woods. And he's like, I'm gonna kill it. And I'm like, don't kill it. And I'm just like, why am I having such a hard time with this? And he comes back. He's like, the rat is dead. And I was like, you killed the rat. And even for me in that moment, I had to like, okay, wait, he just did a service for our family that no one wanted to do. No one wanted to get this rat. And him providing something for us, I had to like go and apologize for reacting that he killed this rat. I'm like, no, you did what was meant to be done. And even just recognizing and having those conversations with him, if I respond in a way where I'm not allowing that detachment or I'm not allowing him to like do his own thing that is providing for our family, has I've had to have that self-responsibility and that curiosity with me, within myself of, am I allowing him to detach? Am I allowing that process that is meant to be so that he can show up as his self, as his own innate, authentic self? And so I think that was just, it is like a pivotal moment for our family to be like, no, you are your own person and you are not going to follow what I say just because I'm saying it. And it was a it was a fun moment that we laugh at now, but in the moment I was like so activated that he killed this rat and I was like, why? Why am I responding this way? And so I had to get curious about my response.
Yeah. Okay. That's actually a super, really great segue into like the fourth phase, which is the
Okay.
apprentice phase. The whole idea behind the apprentice is they shift from this challenger phase where they're trying to figure out what they believe and why. So they're questioning everything and coming up with their own set of values and beliefs. But still at that age, a lot of their life is I do what I am told to do because mom and dad control the food and the screen time and they're bigger than me. So they do it because they have to do it. And that's your job as a parent is to say, I've got to put boundaries or else you'll just eat ice cream, you'll stay up all night and watch TV. Like, so I put in boundaries But at some point, you need that before they leave your home. It is so crucial that they shift to having their own intrinsic values and moral compass that, I would say, are in alignment with your good values that you have. I mean, for me, it's in alignment with scripture. So it's like the North Star. Um, but even for people who aren't Christian, I work with people who aren't Christian all the time. So I'm like, you're still going to have a value of being like selfless and servant hearted and kindness and love in a lot of those things. So you want your child to see like, oh, I clean, I do the dishes, and not just because I have to or I'm, going to lose something, but because this is a contribution not just to the home,
Yeah.
um, but it's the community of our family. It's the shared work together that we do. This is like, I want to do this because it's a good thing. Um, and even if they don't want to, that's probably a stretch. I don't even want to do dishes, but I want to be of use and of service to people I love in the home I live in because I recognize my part in this family dynamic. Because our kids do play a part in the feeling of our home. It's much smaller, obviously, than ours, but they do have their own nature. Um, so if they just choose defiance over listening to you, like that, it does affect things. So I want my sons, as they grow up, to start choosing to do the right things because they believe it to be the right thing to do. And that requires a certain level of detachment and risk from us. So fathers have to go through this too. Eventually, the son leaves the home. And fathers also have to experience like, he's not my son, he's his own man,
Mm.
right? So even fathers at some point, I say that there's like three severings. There's the severing of the umbilical cord at birth from the safety of the womb. There's this rite of passage age severing, I say around age 13, from mother's world to father's world. And then a severing from father's world into they are their own man now. Um, so during that process of detachment, it's like they're gonna make some mistakes, but I want to help give them the boundaries and the guidelines to keep some of those mistakes from being as bad as they can, but always teaching them like this is the good, like this is why you want to choose that. I'd say that's really hard because you have to have some reason why you're worth listening to.
Mm.
Um, and to me, that coming full circle, that brings it back to the marriage.
Yes.
I'm like, son, do you see how much I love you guys? Do you see what it feels like to be loved by me as your father? Do you see the way I love your mom and the home that we have? If you want these good things in your life, then this is the way you go about it. And that's surrender to Christ. It's basing your identity in Christ. All the stuff that I talked about way back into that kitchen sink story, like that shift in me. And, Jacquelyn, I always say, I was going to post this the other day. My biggest flex is I went through my dad going to prison for murder, my stepdad being a drug addict, almost getting a divorce because I was a workaholic. Then another season of almost my marriage falling apart when my wife went through postpartum depression, to a life where like I love my wife and kids. Like I want to be with them all the time. Like my relationship with my wife gives me life. Like I want to be with her every day. Like I really thoroughly enjoy my kids. There is peace and joy. And we fight. We got in a fight recently that was a good one, right? And my kids are disrespectful sometimes, but it's so good and rich. It is abundant life. And but the caveat is that's not my biggest flex. Like that's something that God did in me. Um, but that being the reality of my life helps me speak truth into my children. Like I'm worth listening to. Versus one day they're gonna have like Andrew Tates and college professors and all these people that are like, we have a huge sexy life to offer you, and all you have to do is this. And I'm like, I don't want my kids to listen to that. I want them to be 18-year-olds that have the maturity to be like, that's
Mhm.
fake. I know that because of the values that I have for myself.
Yes.
I can't be like fooled by the offerings of this world or swayed by circumstance because I don't like most men, I don't get my validation from my wife. She doesn't hold the keys to my self-worth. Neither does work, like work and wife are the places men get validation. I'm rooted in something much deeper. So now I'm free to love my wife, to contribute through work, to love my kids in this much more powerful and deep way. So that's what the apprentice phase is all about. Now that you separated your identity from us as a challenger, let's talk about the identity God has bestowed upon you that is higher than anything else in your life.
Mm, mm. I love that you just brought us full circle in that last stage, and like how you said it came back to the way you described it, the freedom to parent in a way that I can receive all the bounty and the beauty that is here so that I am not attached to external validation that is going to be a false validation within myself.
Mhm.
Because just how you describe that in fatherhood is how I have experienced motherhood. And in the just living life with, I feel like I'm living with these rose-colored glasses of like, oh my gosh, this life is so precious. This moment is so precious. The sunrise, getting to be outside, getting to be home. Like it is just so miraculous how beautiful each day can truly be. And I love that you brought us full circle to that because it comes back to living in alignment with who we're divinely created to be and getting clear on that and allowing ourselves to let go of how we've attached to external validation and find that validation within ourselves and within God. And when we feel rooted in that, that just transpires into our marriage, into our home, how we parent, into our community. And I want that for others. And I'm so
Mhm.
grateful for you to come on and bring that conversation full circle in that way. And you are doing incredible work in this world for choosing every day to show up in that way and for changing the patterns in your life to be a way that you can feel integrous about and that you can look back and say that I showed up in marriage and in parenting in a way that feels good and in integrity with who I am. And I'm just so honored for you to come on and share all of that. And I really appreciate you, all of your storytelling and the experiences and the wisdom that you have bestowed upon us. I would love to know where we can get to know you and connect with you and your work because you are such an ally in this compartment of family values and raising sons in this way and there's intentionality overall in how we're choosing to show up in our family. So how
Mhm.
can we connect with you more?
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for asking that. The primary way that I had no idea was going to be a way, and it's this thing now, is the Honest Fatherhood Instagram page. So it's honest_fatherhood. If you go there, you'll find all my stuff, and then like in the links in my bio, you can find the email newsletter, the coaching programs I offer. So today, I now do men's coaching and fatherhood coaching. Um, at some point, there will be a link to this podcast in my links bio for a while. So going there is a great place to start. Because I didn't know this was going to be a thing, it's actually just my personal Facebook page. It's just Daniel Grose, and my Instagram goes over there. But if you're on Facebook, you can catch me there. I do have a YouTube page that I'm not really great at keeping up with it. But a lot of men like YouTube, and they go to YouTube more often than they do Instagram.
Yes.
So that's also YouTube and Instagram is Honest Fatherhood, and then Facebook is just Daniel Gross, which is my name.
And then do you have any offerings coming up?
Yes, so they're less than they have been in the past because I'm trying to write a book. So
Woo!
yeah, I find out this week if I've got different publishers I'm talking to. I'm getting deals in this week. So we're supposed to pick the one I'm going with.
Wow.
But the four stages of a boy is all going to be in there as part of how do you disciple a son into being a man? What's that process look like? It's a lot of how do you shift him like from this
Yes.
stage to this stage so that you don't get stuck in the challenger phase. That's really ugly on a 17-year-old, right?
Yes.
So
That's going
that's
to be
really important.
incredible. I cannot wait for that to come out.
So that's really cool. But the next thing that I have coming up, I always have one-on-one coaching kind of available. But I'm running a cohort for 4 men, me and my friend Noel Fenderson. He has a company called Dangerous But Good. We're running a small group. I don't know when this is going to air, but if they could check. It's later in April, I think like the 22nd.
Okay.
So we'll run some after that if this airs after, or if someone's listening to this after that. But Brought to Bear is a 10-week series where we take a small group of men through manhood and marriage. Like, what does it mean to be a man? It's identity, who we are in Christ, our mission, and then process, like the nuts and bolts of what does it mean to provide and protect spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Um, in your life, like sharing the mental load with your wife, like all this stuff. So that's a 10-week program that's going to be really cool. Um, on the 18th, if it comes out then, I'm doing an event with Noel called God, Guns, and Grappling, which is going to be a lot of fun. That's in Memphis, Tennessee. It's a full day event,
Okay.
but men learn. So men, we learn by doing stuff. Like we
Yes.
have to do things together.
Yes.
And Noel's a SWAT team guy, so he's got connections in that world. So anyone can come. You don't have to be a wrestler or big into guns, but if you want to learn some cool grappling techniques, get to shoot some neat firearms, and then listen to me preach about manhood and marriage and stuff like that, it's a really cool full day event. The next one's on the 18th. We'll probably do more, but those are the next two things that are coming up.
How fun.
Um, Everything else will be linked in my Instagram page too. Like the
Awesome.
next fatherhood group will be in there, that kind of
Awesome.
thing.
Awesome. And I'll make sure to link all of that in the show notes as well. And I will go ahead and tag you on YouTube as well, because this will be uploaded on YouTube as well. So I'll make sure to go and
Sweet.
find you and link you. Well, I feel like this conversation could have had so many different tangents to go on. I feel like we could just
I
continue
know.
conversing for hours, but I just so appreciate your time that you gave for us because it really feels invaluable. It feels like more this is like a family foundation podcast episode, and I love that because
Yeah.
that's really where it all starts. We can't bypass our marriage to go straight into parenting, and I think that that is where we lay the foundations for our home and our family. So thank you
Mhm.
so much for your time and for showing up today.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for having me. I loved this, by the way, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cool.
We'll see you next time on the Embodied Mother podcast.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. It has truly been an honor to walk alongside you and share my journey of motherhood with you. If you feel connected with this episode, I would just so love if you could leave a rating and a review. This really helps the podcast grow so that it can reach other mothers and women along this journey. And I always love hearing your takeaways and your interactions with this podcast. So if you ever feel called to share on Instagram and social media, be sure to tag me at the.embodied.mother so I can connect with you and your takeaways from this podcast. Until next time, I'm sending you with so much love and blessings on your journey in this life.